I hate this place. I hate its smell, its stench. It rises and phases right through to my bedroom. I hate how no matter the day, the goddamn lights never work. How for some reason that never used to bother me. How in the middle of the night, the carpet feels like stepping on snakes. How that never used to occur to me. How the condensation seems to travel through the windows to the walls like the disgusting saliva of a mutt. But most of all, I hate the silence. The silence that permeates the whole place like a fog. But none of this was a problem before. No, even the silence was comfort to me. Not now. I can't leave. Not yet. There's still work to be done. My name is Walter Hilson. I've lived in Hamley all my life. I can't escape this fucking town, and believe me, I've tried. It's dull. Painfully dull. But somehow you always find yourself walking down these same streets. Oh yeah, sure, Hamley is certainly a quiet town, but when you live in the area I do, surrounded by the loudest, most detestable excuses for human garbage imaginable, you begin to wonder what kind of cosmic punishment forced you to spend your days here. My papers used to win awards, but God only knows how I managed to write so well with the petulant kids down the road, giggling and gallivanting like inebriated baboons. It hasn't been without its blessings, though. Me and my wife Marie grew up on the same block. We even went to the same school together. She was a paradox, so calm and engaging to me personally, yet so rambunctious and tantalizing to watch at parties. I'm a social cripple, but to see her swim in Hamley's social scene was amazing. Like many from this dull town, I've seen a few crazy stories on the internet concerning Hamley's haunted status. It's odd, some are far-fetched, some are improbable, and some, bizarrely enough, are true. Believe me, the whole Clive Allen deal has got me stumped. All these missing people, it's like people think they're all connected, but they don't know the half of it. But there is one oddity I've never seen mentioned among the myriad reports of vampire cults in the wood, and I live in it. The sweet old Hilson home was inherited to me by who? I cannot say. I've exhausted every book in the library and every ancestral resource trying to figure that one out. I'm pretty sure my inquisitive Marie also did her fair share on that one. When we first moved in, things seemed normal, really. In fact, brand new. We could never get a hold of the previous owners. Every single trace of them had vanished. But even more bizarre was the color of the rooms. Pure, pristine whiteness, completely blank, just ready for us to decorate and make our own. A fresh coat of paint so pure and undiluted, it was like gazing into a snowstorm. Marie hated it. She found that feeling repulsive. The whiteness was cold, unflinching, and confining, which is understandable considering that the white seemed to pervade every corner of the house. But where she saw it as a cage, I saw that blankness as comforting. Finally, nothing to get me distracted from my writing. If I couldn't have peace in the neighbourhood, I could at least have silence within my own house. I was always grateful Marie was accepting and cared enough about me to accept that. In many ways, I suppose I had an involuntary grip on her upon that point. Whenever I was out, she had friends over, always making sure never to disturb my peace. Frankly, I feel sorry for her having to constantly put up with my neuroses and social seclusion, but after all, somebody has to pay the bills to keep up this place. The house had other quirks, though. For one, Marie once told me that her best friend asked her where the door beside the kitchen led. The only thing was, we never had a room there, as she realized the next visit. This place should have a basement according to the plans, but physically there just isn't room. But then again, the documents I found to support this were questionable at best. They were old, almost antiquarian even. Still, one day Marie tells me she's in a rush, but in the corner of her eye, she notices that phantom door. I'll never forget the sense of ice-cold terror she related to me as her hand grasped that doorknob. It was too much for her. She couldn't go through with it, and had decided to explore it later with me. Alas, though, when I returned, it had gone, seemingly fully vanished back into her imagination. I stayed with her inspecting that part of the house for an hour or two before I determined it just couldn't be. From that day forth, I think Marie felt as if I didn't believe her. She seemed to be developing some form of hearing loss, but it only seemed to occur when we were at home. Give that girl a bustling party and she'd hear your gossip a mile away. But home, separated by stair levels, she'd be convinced my shouts were mere whispers. It was as if the volume of things she was hearing occasionally was off balance. Unmixed, even. Like she had to focus harder on what she wanted to hear. But I'd awaken in the middle of the night to find her sleepwalking, too. She was trying to leave. Almost got away a few times, too. Despite this, though, at least her weekly meetups every Tuesday seemed to provide some level of relief. She just seemed so stressed and overwhelmed for someone so usually carefree and adventurous. It was heartbreaking to watch as I felt unable to help her in any way. It was just so subtle and declining. Then one Tuesday I came home to find the house empty. She'd obviously been here. Nothing was out of place. The door was still locked. Logically, she and her friends should still have been here. But as I called out to her, it was then I noticed just how clear these thick white walls now were. They were white before, but now? They were glowing. Not a speck of dirt from our time here visible. The white was exotic. I traveled upstairs in my search for her, but again, nothing. Well, almost nothing. I too now seemed to be afflicted with the same sense of audio distortion, as the tapping running of the bath did not make even the slightest sound in my ears. As I turned it off and let the water drain, I took in the tranquility, the silence. The way the house seemed to block off any irritants in my life was always intoxicating. But now, I should have been distraught at her vanishing, but instead I saw an opportunity to get right back to work. I was struck by something so important to me. I felt it must be written with no hesitation, and any thought of Marie was momentarily pushed out of my head. For the first time, I felt a level of spiritual center towards my work, like I was on a train of thought that I would never lose. I'd write from morning till dawn in a complete trance, my attention completely consumed. I was in a complete daze. I had no clue the contents I was writing. I felt guided by some muse I had never known, yet was always there just the same. Time had no meaning. In fact, the only sense I was aware of was this growing palpitation, a thud growing thicker and thicker throughout the days. It was silent at first, inaudible, but as time went on, my guilt towards Marie began to erupt. This heartbeat, this cyclical rhythm of cancer in my ears became louder and louder until I could pull it off no longer. My writing trance finally broken, I scrambled to the kitchen to grab some painkillers, where a week without the slightest thought of where Marie might be caught up with me. I collapsed, weeping to the floor in a dizzy fever, punctuated by the ever-exasperating cadence of this fiery heart. In the short moments of clearness I experienced before the rhythmic hits, it occurred to me that this noise felt a strange, intuitive sense of remembrance about it. I couldn't quite place it, but something about this ominous, ear-shattering thud was strangely familiar. So frequent in my life that I was sure I must have heard it every day, and never realized. But now I did. Now I was forced to. Now I couldn't imagine a time without it. What if it was Marie's? But it couldn't have been. Why was it getting thicker and stronger by the hour? Marie was nowhere to be seen. If it was the guilty sound of her heart that I longed to hear just once more, why was it so loud? I looked up and still there was no sight of her, yet the heart continued to pulse. In a mad frenzy, I scrambled to get up and leave this place. I was confined to hear this all-consuming sound in my house of pure silence. For once in my life, I longed for the sound of those obnoxious children outside, and the noise of those cars, and every waking disturbed moment of it. It took all my strength to not let the force of the heart from keeping me down to the ground, but when I did, I felt surely delirious. For sitting in the exact spot where she once tried so desperately to convince me, that strange door had returned, so inconspicuous, so out of the way. One would never have questioned that mere hours ago I registered no door in that line of sight. I felt as if for the first time, some force or being or thing or something finally decided to pull back the curtain and reveal to me some truth. I thought this was it. Behind that door was Marie. It had to be. God knows she'd hate me for spending so long writing, but at least she'd be here again, and I wouldn't feel so unstoppably insane. She was right all along. She must have gone back in to investigate with her friends. Yeah, that must have been it. But as I slowly opened the ice-cold doorknob, I felt a sickly stench paralyze every muscle in my face. A smell so amorphous and chemically unusual it made me retch. But I could see nothing but pitch darkness, and became filled with an intense fright which almost completely drowned out any sense of the heartbeat which had once transposed my mind to total terror. I quickly scrambled to pull out my phone to illuminate the room. What my eyes witnessed in those moments has been burnt into my retinas, and is the very impetus for my writing of this strange and personal letter. Do not search for me if my whereabouts are unknown. I'm still here, within this very building. Simply destroy this house as fast as you can. It bears secrets no one in Hamley should ever know. It lures you in ways you cannot imagine. Do not trust it. I shall reveal what I saw in this room, for as I'm writing this, I am planning my rescue operation. Behind that slimy imitation of a door, my eyes immediately locked on to see some of my wife's closest friends plastered all over the walls like some obscene posters. Their clothes, skin, and hair pinned back with some gelatinous white saliva pushing so intensely that none were left conscious, which then drew my attention to what should have been the walls. But instead of plaster or anything of the sort, it was organic, a putrid reddish-pink color decorated by pulsating veins traveling to the center of the room as if I had entered a nightmarish dining room created entirely from stomach tissue. I could barely stand the smell. I think I could even spy the corpse of one of her friends, and could certainly smell the remains of her skin and organs against whatever rank dissolving material that was. It was then I saw the gruesome decoration at the top of the room, some fiendish representation of a chandelier. As it flexed in and out, pumping its veins in a toxic fury, I finally realized the hostage unconscious beneath it. My wife, Marie, huddled in a bowl held by the same gross material as her friends. I do not know, but judging from the dip in her legs, I'd say half dissolved already. As I write this, I come to remember the contents of the strange paper I wrote into delirious focus. The house was my muse. It got into my head. It knows the power of legends. It wants people here. It wants them to live and use it until finally it's ready to reveal itself and claim you. I spent all that time writing different invitations and pretenses to anybody and everybody my brain had any memory of. It's demanding them here. I don't know what to do. I can only warn you. Right now, my only hope for sanity is my sweet Marie's face. I can't be too late. I can't be. Signed, Walter Hilson.